In this Videonet interview at IBC 2013, I'm speaking with Julien Signes, who's the President and CEO at Envivio. Welcome back, Julien.
Thank you.
Now, on the booth, you're showing here a comparison between MPEG-2, HEVC, and also MPEG-4 AVC. So can you just tell us the difference that HEVC is making for real-time video?
Yes, today we're able to show about 30% gain from AVC to HEVC. We think we can further optimize that. Maybe 50% is optimistic, but it's kind of the end goal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone's talking about 50% as this, you know, this dream figure.
That's
I mean, when we see people deploy, what do you think it will be realistically?
Well, realistically, we think around 30% to start with, which we think is going to start next year. So you'll see 30% from AVC, which is very significant when you think about it.
So what kind of bit rate would that leave us for an ultra-high definition, if we look at premium sports, for example, which is a likely first service?
That's right. We think you'll be able to do around 15 megabit Ultra HD for sports at 60 or 50 frames per second. So when you think about it, it's what we started with HD for MPEG-2. So that same bandwidth, now you're going to be able to have Ultra HD, which is 4 times more pixels, which is very encouraging.
So that's very viable for those sort of premium first services and maybe 1 or 2 channels. I mean, in order to expand outwards, I mean, first of all, do you think UHD will expand outwards as we saw with HD? Is it a natural kind of format that we will see just go on to more and more channels, or will it remain more like 3D, a kind of appointment to view, big event type idea?
No, we think that it really has potential to become like HD, where it's going to become the mainstream format in a few years. Obviously, it's going to take time, and in this, the devices is going to be key. But we see a lot of offerings already coming up, and so we think in the next 3 years, going to be a big Ultra HD TV set installed, and also consumer devices, and so that will drive the networks.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of very big screen UHD demos around, including on your stand. They look fantastic. But obviously, the first place we expect to see this is actually in sort of multi-screen and over-the-top type scenarios. I mean, what impact do you think HEVC is going to have in that market?
Well, I think it's going to be huge because there's a renewal cycle of those devices is much shorter than TV renewal. And so all the new devices are coming up with higher resolution screens, but also newer devices so it can decode HEVC. And so mobile is going to be where we see more and more the first applications with HEVC, and we see that coming up, probably next year, starting next year. You'll see some mobile HEVC enabled mobile devices, and with that, you'll see the first services.
And is the most likely benefit going to be to enable sort of higher definition over mobile, or just extend the reach of where the mobile networks can reach?
A little bit of both. I think you'll see different scenarios, maybe some 3G services that have not been really possible, reaching high res. You can see very high quality 4G services. I think you'll see a mix.
Okay, and that's always been a software environment, hasn't it, multi-screen, and you pioneered the whole sort of software encoding sort of scenario.
That's
and now you're saying that we could actually put software encoding onto classic TV, so the sort of traditional TV type signals, and the performance would be as good as dedicated hardware chips. And there's always been this argument from the hardware vendors that that's just not possible. So what has changed, in your view, to make that the case?
Well, what has changed when you look at your devices, your mobile devices today, smartphones have HD screens, and some tablets have higher resolution screens. They have Ultra HD screens today. And so the premise was that in the past, when you started 3G TV, it was really QVGA screens on a 100 kilobits connection. Now you've got megabits of bandwidth on 4G with Ultra HD or HD screens. And so there's really the boundary between a home connected TV, traditional TV at home, connected on a broadcast network, or a mobile from a playback perspective. There's no more differences, and so that's just a reality. The physical decoding is basically the same, and so we think on the back end there's a lot of interest for the operators to do the converge architecture, where they process the content for anything and everything, including the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen figures for UHD that it requires 12 times the processing in the encode.
That's right.
Only 3 times in the decode. So, you know, the real heavy lifting is in the back end. So, I mean, are you saying that you could use a software-based encoding and do a UHD even for sort of these big 80-inch screens?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one thing to remember, the other big factor here is the server capacity. Obviously, the Intel roadmap is pretty consistently proving about 2x improvement between the architecture and just the chipset becoming more and more efficient. You see an average a 2x efficiency gain every year. So obviously, you know, what we were able to do today versus 3 years before is 8x more processing, and we see that equation continue. So with that kind of speed of improvement of the performance, we can see no problem to process any screen on those servers.
Okay, and is this a message that resonates when you go and tell this to operators? Are they sort of ready to listen? Because obviously people have very you know, perceived or preconceptions, if you like, about things, and we're used to doing things certain ways. I mean, are people ready to look again at this?
Well, whenever there's a big change in the industry, there's always innovators and first movers, and there's always people that are more traditional and reluctant to change. But at the end of the day, it's all about the ROI and the efficiency. What we can show with software is not only you can have same or better performance, but you can have evolution of the platform all the time. And that's really much what we have on the consumer side. We have different devices, new tablets, new Ultra HD TVs, new format HEVC all the time. And so the landscape lends itself really well to software. And software has proven that it is better quality or better or equal quality. And it is able to cope with all the new different formats. And thanks to the server, it's actually very cost effective. So when you look at the total cost of ownership of a hardware solution that you need to revamp every 3 to 5 years that can't scale to your new formats versus having a installed a standard data center or even cloud on which you port software, the total cost of ownership equation is really in favor of software. And so the argument is easily won. You sometimes need to go against some, you know, people that are more traditional, that are reluctant to run their commercial pay TV service on software. But this is changing as we prove that software is also as reliable and stable as a dedicated hardware.
Okay, so this should enable us to have this dream scenario of the converged head end. I mean, would it be literally one kind of device, one location, taking care of everything, right from Ultra HD right down to the mobiles? Yeah,
so at this show we actually announced Zone as one of the innovators in that. We just deployed with them a cable satellite multi-screen system, all in one head end. So we've already proven some of the first movers have invested in that technology, and the reason again is more efficiency, more flexibility, just as good reliability, and as good or better quality.
Wow, okay, well that's great. So definitely happening in the real world. So
it is.
So thank you very much, Julien, for your time, and always nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, John.